Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Corner Office here on April 30th, the last day in April, right? This is it.
Correct.
Year is flying by. I mean, Jack and I are getting to the end here of our second year in college, which is crazy. This is a morning episode, which is why hoodie mode is engaged right now. I'm still not entirely awake, but we haven't been on to talk about the NBA playoffs, and we felt like we should be for the past couple of days. So now we're finally just finding some time to get in the studio and talk about it. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry. It's been about 3 weeks since we last recorded. I got violently sick for a week and a half, and then just got bombarded by the final week of classes. So we're back and we're ready to talk about some sports. But I think we would be wrong to not talk about the Celtics wrapping it up last night. Beat the Orlando Magic in a gentleman's sweep.
Yep.
I don't really think anyone's surprised. I think a lot of people predicted that the Celtics would gentlemen's this series, and they went out and got the job done. But I will say credit to Orlando. If they're fully healthy, they're a really scrappy team, and they play basketball that I just don't really have that much fun watching, which is be really, really like so bad on offense that you can't even watch the game on TV when it's on that side of the court, and then so good at defense that it's just like wildly frustrating. And they're very physical, very scrappy, and really annoying, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they have two really good offensive players. Not even really good. They have two offensive players. They have Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, who both don't play NBA basketball like in a traditional way, I would say. You know, they're
Agreed.
both not really great three-point shooters. Paolo really isn't a three-point shooter at all, but they're dangerous in the mid-range. They get downhill. They play, an aggressive style.
I think that maybe 13 years ago, Paolo Banchero might be a top 5 player in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a game that it's like you're watching a 6'11" DeMar DeRozan kind of. You know what I mean? Like he's just never going to be an above average 3-point shooter. But like the things that he does in the mid range and in those low percentage shot areas, like it's hard to replicate, especially for a guy of his size. So like you can see the offensive potential there. And Franz Wagner has always been a guy that I've like kind of flip flopped on. He's kind of inconsistent. Like he could go out and score 30. He could be completely invisible the next game. He's a little bit like a more polished Jalen Green in that sense. But they just don't have a fantastic guard like offensively. Cole Anthony coming off the bench is a fine offensive
Joseph
player.
is their starting one, and
He has been Jalen Suggs has been out.
Jalen Suggs is hurt, yeah.
But Jalen Suggs isn't a great offensive player either. He's more of a two-way defensive guy. Anthony Black is kind of the same way, kind of an unpolished 6'7" guard. Jonathan Isaac, another great defender with no offensive bag. You know what I mean? So they just have like literally two guys that they look to every single possession down the floor. And if it's not working, it's just not working. You know what I mean? As opposed to the Celtics, which I mean, we obviously have, talked about even with Tatum missing game 2. And, I think, did KP miss time this series? I don't remember.
KP missed a little bit of time when he started bleeding down his face, but Drew Holiday definitely missed a game or two.
Yep. But either way, you look at this Celtics team and it's just like the barrage of options that can hit you on any given day is just so different. It's not like any other team in the league, in my opinion, still. I mean, maybe you could look at maybe the Thunder have something similar going on, but I don't think to the same extent of like the star power that the Celtics have. But when you play a team like the Magic, who has a kind of a two-headed monster, like it's really tough to emulate what the Celtics can do on offense because they can just spray the ball anywhere.
I agree. And last night in the first half, they ended up going down I think it was 11 points at one period in the second quarter. Came back and had it tied at halftime, and then went on a 38-11 run in the third quarter. And that's just something that not very many teams can do.
Right.
The question that comes out of this series from an Orlando Magic perspective to me is, I think this front office has to kind of have a conversation with themselves and say, okay, we have this young superstar in Paolo Banchero. Can we win something meaningful, even if it's the NBA Cup? Can we win something meaningful with Paolo Banchero as our number one option? And to me, I think that answer is no.
Okay.
I think they need someone more offensive.
Question. I think it's an interesting question. I think that you could probably win it with him as your number one option, but you have to surround him with a very perfect situation. And I think the perfect situation for him would be to get a top 10 guard. They just don't have one. They don't have a top 10 guard in that team.
I mean, really just anyone to help him. because Franz Wagner is at best a third option on a championship level team.
I mean, the one game that they did win against the Celtics is kind of like the emulation of what we always do with the Celtics, where we go, okay, if they score this many points, they're probably going to win the game. The Orlando Magic held them to 93 points. It's
the line's 100.
It's so unlike that, for the Celtics offense. But like, if you're relying on your team scoring under 100 points in order to win games, like that's a really inconsistent way of it's just an inconsistent way to play. Like, you're just not going to win that many games that way.
It's a very college basketball way of playing in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that we've had this conversation enough times now where like our listeners should know how we feel about it. Offense is always going to outshine defense, which is why people say that no one plays defense in the NBA. That's not the case. It's just that offense is so much better. And if you don't believe that argument, go back and watch the Celtics Magic series.
Right.
Offense will always outshine defense no matter how good it is. The Orlando Magic play incredible defense and no offense, and that's why they did not win this series.
I agree. I mean, I think that most of the series that are over right now are ones that we expected. Like, we expected the Celtics to win in 4 or 5 against the Magic. We expected Cleveland to sweep the Miami Heat, and by God,
they did.
Destroy them.
They certainly did.
They still look super dangerous, that team overall, and that was without Darius Garland playing the last 2 games of that series, which I think
they won by an average of like 39 points each game.
Yeah. So they absolutely went out and thrashed the Heat, which brings up my questions about the Heat as to like, how good and how much of a ceiling do you think Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo have? Like, you have 2 guys who were all-stars last year, but like, I really don't see it with either of them as to like being winning players.
I think that they kind of rose to stardom in one of those situations that were kind of perfect for both of them, right? Tyler Hero was the 6th man on that Heat championship run in the bubble.
Yep.
That was what kind of elevated him into he's a pretty good 2. Bam Adebayo was kind of playing support for Jimmy Butler, and he was kind of the glue holding that team together. And once he left, who is going to step up and become a number 1 option? It looks like neither of them. However, I do think Andrew Wiggins is very good at basketball, and I'm glad to see him in a situation that'll kind of thrive for him.
I agree, and I think that team will be a playoff team regardless of if they change things going forward, right? Like, losing Jimmy Butler in the middle of your season, that can, or even not even the middle, like the end of your season, that that adjustment can be a little strange. And I do think that Tyler Hero has the ability to become a number 1 option. I simply don't see it with Bam Adebayo offensively. But that being said, like, it doesn't matter. Like, we knew the Cavs were going to win this series. They were way better all season. I think that I expected the Miami Heat to at least get a game off the Cavs.
Are they the Chicago Bulls?
Oh, could be.
Chicago's
be, right? Kind of doing Chicago things right now, but hopefully they get a good draft pick. I mean, they have a young core, so they're looking all right.
It's the 2nd year in a row that Miami's been swept as the 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
and they also had to win in the play-in to get that 8 seed. I think they were the 10 seed both times.
Yeah, they were. So are they the new perennially mediocre shooting themselves in the foot every year? Maybe.
It's potential.
I like Khalil Ware. He's fun to watch.
You could get some draft capital for a lot of the guys on the roster if you're aiming to blow it up. Bro, we got to see Tristan Thompson play basketball in 2025 in that series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's just like a bad scenario to be in.
Well, and Tyler Hero's been in trade conversations for years now. Like, when are they going to pull the trigger? It's going to happen. And he could go be a great 2nd or 3rd option on a championship team.
But also, if your plan is to do that, then you have to be like, okay, Pat Riley is throwing in the towel and going into a rebuild. And that's where you're going forward.
Agreed.
And then you keep your guys like Jaime Jaquez, your guys like
Jovic.
Nikola Jovic. Yep.
You probably keep Bam, to be honest.
You probably do keep Bam. And then you're fully focused on said rebuild. OKC versus Memphis again. Once Ja went down in game 3, I think everybody expected that to be a sweep. He said that he had them figured out. Sure, whatever, man. I really don't think that they would have gotten more than a game or 2 off of the Thunder going into the 2nd round, and they still have looked completely dominant in that sense.
The grenade celebration's cool though.
It's pretty cool. I think if you're in a Memphis Grizzlies perspective, I think it's time that you look for a better 2nd option on your team than Desmond Bane. He's a good player.
Desmond Bane on his day is a great player.
Yeah.
How often is his day? That's the question.
And he just cannot be a volume scorer. Like, he's just not like the guy that should be taking 15 to 20 shots a game if Ja Morant is out. Like, you need somebody to step into that role, and they just don't have one right now. I think that you're happy with Zach Edey's production this year. Jalen Wells looked really good for you guys.
Certainly.
So like there is definitely some potential and some upside there.
But like John Conchar being your 6th or 7th option.
Yeah. Santi Aldama, right?
I think Cam Spencer actually played really well for them this year.
I mean, Scottie Pippen Jr. was probably their biggest riser. You know what I mean? But again, he plays the same position as
Gigi Jackson averaged 20 points a game last year. This year he played in the G League.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
Memphis kind of has a lot of talent that they could develop into nice pieces. But it's Memphis and they fired their head coach. So like what do we do moving forward? Again, they're one of those teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but again, those are the series that I think everybody was expecting to be over and done with. And then you get into a bunch of series that were going to be absolute rock fights, in my opinion. And one of the biggest disappointments for me during the NBA playoffs so far is that so many of these series that I want to see go 7 games may not get there just because some of these teams have gone on up 3-1. These series include the Warriors versus the Rockets, the Pistons and the Knicks, which is now going into Game 6 because the Pistons avoided elimination the other night.
And they're going back home.
Yep, Lakers, Timberwolves. Those are the big 3 series for me. And then obviously I think the best series going right now is Nuggets Clippers, but that series is primed to go 7 games. But I want to talk really quickly about the Bucks versus the Pacers, which is the last series that Indiana won in 5 games. They looked really good, to be honest with you, over the course of this series. They looked like they had the Bucks completely figured out in games 1 and 2. Even with Dame Lillard in game 2, they still had them figured out. And then obviously when Dame goes down with that Achilles tear, I think everybody kind of knew that the series was over.
Heartbreaking injury, by the way.
Yeah. Especially for a guy who's been battling with so much this year, the blood clots, stuff to just get back on the court. But, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton just absolutely led that team into overtime last night, and it felt like the Bucks collapsed again. I'm wondering where the Bucks go from here. Like, that's my biggest question with this series, regardless of the Giannis and Tyrese Halliburton's dad situation and all that type of stuff. Like, this could have very well been the last time we see Giannis Antetokounmpo in a Bucks uniform, and I want to get your take on that.
Well, I mean, the package for him that you would have to make is absolutely gargantuan.
It's astronomical. Yeah.
Gargantuan, right? I don't think that this is the last time we'll see Giannis play in a Bucks uniform, but I also don't think that this Bucks team is better than a first-round exit. And if Damian Lillard is going to miss the entire season next year, which it looks like he is, then their second option is Kyle Kuzma, and that is not good enough to win you probably even a play-in game. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if next year this Bucks team isn't, unless they go out and make a crazy move to surround Giannis with some superstars, which I wouldn't necessarily be surprised about.
But I don't think they have any draft capital to do that anyways.
Right, because they spent it all on Dame. So,
and how much money do you have under the luxury really, right. They're in a tough situation.
I think that honestly, they're just going to kind of flounder for a little bit, and they may waste the end of Giannis' career, which would be kind of a huge bummer.
I think Giannis asks out before that. I think.
But you can ask out all you want, right? Joel Embiid asked out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But if no one's gonna come forward and give you 6 first-round picks and 3 players, which is what he's worth, then I'm sorry, you just can't leave.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a massive trade package in order to get him onto your roster. That's definitely true. But I don't see I don't see the direction of this Bucks team. I don't know if they're going to stick with Doc Rivers. I don't know if they're going to stick with Darvin Ham on the assistant coaching staff. Was the coaching the problem this year? I think you could point to it and say no, just because, I mean, the injuries that they battled with and all this type of stuff. But then when you lose a game like that where you're up 7 in the last 2 minutes of the game.
No, you're up 7 in the last 35 seconds of the game.
There you go. Sure. You're expected to win. And I think that's based off of coaching, not anything else.
I will say, all credit to Tyrese Halliburton, right? Hit a huge game-winning layup. Huge over a perennial all-defense player in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Right.
All credit to you. Getting on the scores table and then having your dad run on the court and get in his face and like get into a screaming match with a top 5 player in the NBA. I mean, Giannis's stat line last night was absolutely ridiculous. It was one of the best. It was a like on par with the Nikola Jokic stat line.
30, 20,
and 13.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to go and get in his face and like have a barking match with him because your son did the first thing where like NBA fans can look at it and be like, oh, that's worth it all season is doing way too much.
Yeah,
way too much, especially for a first round series. Like if this is the second, third round, I would understand like totally freaking out over that. But they won this series 4-1. Right? Like it's not like it was close at all. The stakes were really not that high. And then Tyrese Halliburton went on Twitter and was like, overrate that. I think you're doing too much.
Yeah.
And I think this Pacers team could possibly win another series, whether that be against the Knicks or
they'd have to beat the Cavs.
Right. So whether that be against the Cavs or not, right? Like they possibly could.
Yeah.
Probably not. They're probably not going to do that.
Probably not.
So, I just think that they were doing way too much. I think it was a really bad look for the team. And we'll see moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think sometimes
I'm sorry, one more thing. I feel like there's a small list of players in the NBA that you cannot go up to and just blatantly disrespect to their face.
Yeah.
I think it is Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is Nikola Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
SGA.
LeBron
and Steph Curry.
Okay.
And for your father to be running onto the court and doing that and then not like having any apologies for it, doing way too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an interesting situation. I think this Pacers team is interesting again because last year they were in a similar situation. They win a game. I think they won a series against the Bucks. If I do recall.
Yeah.
A series that they were not slated to win. I think that the Bucks are probably favored to win this series as well. Just like in general fan sphere. And then they went out and who did they play in? Was it the Celtics? The Celtics was in the second round, right?
They played the Knicks in the second round.
The Knicks in the second round. And that was another series where they weren't supposed to win, and they win in 7, and then they lose to the Celtics in 4, but it was a close 4. So, I mean, they do have a little bit of pedigree going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think this Cavs team is just way better than that Knicks team is. And speaking of the Knicks, let's move on to Knicks versus the Pistons.
Knicks just shot themselves in the foot. I'm sorry. They had to win that game.
You think?
I think they had to win that game. Detroit is not an easy place to go play. Just like it takes balls to go into MSG in a closeout game and beat them down the stretch. Just flat out beat them in the game.
I mean, and losing
now they go to
Jalen
Detroit.
Brunson down the stretch is a tough scenario for you.
But did they really lose Jalen Brunson? Because he went back into the game. They just kept him out for the most crucial period of the game. Yeah. And then we're like, all right, go back in there. Right? Like, did they lose him? No, I think it was a coaching decision. And I think it was a really bad one. I think that now the Pistons have won 2 games in MSG.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm no, they won 1 at home and 1 at MSG, so they know what it's like to go in there and win in a closeout situation. They're going back home. If they get Game 6, they have a really good chance of getting Game 7 as well. And I would love to see this Pistons team advance.
I was going to say, they've kind of been my surrogate team for at least another round until, the Celtics eventually have to play the winner of this series. But, they're super fun. You know what I mean? This is a team that they were the worst team in the NBA. They had the worst losing streak in NBA history last year. Think about that from a rebuild perspective. And now you've already taken two wins off the Pistons, a team that is two wins off the Knicks, a team that is supposed to beat you. Cade Cunningham has emerged as a true star player on your team, and you have just a really good young core of guys who seem bought in. You know what I mean? You paid Tobias Harris. He's a solid vet. He didn't deserve nearly what the contract that the 76ers gave him. And then he comes to the Pistons having been one of the most overpaid and overrated players of all time. And now he's kind of emerging into a good role. Same with Malik Beasley, a guy who was kind of on the fringe end of the Bucks bench, comes into this program, gets into a role. Dennis Schroeder has been really solid this year for both the Brooklyn Nets. Kind of anywhere he's gone, he's bounced around a little bit.
Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, another guy who was written off by Mavs.
By the way, you could totally make an argument for this series being 3-2 in the Pistons' favor right now.
Agreed.
Because there was a in my opinion,
no
it was a
call.
very,
And
very
the end of game
controversial
2.
no call, right?
Yep.
No one's going to be happy either way that is called, right? There's always going to be someone upset.
Right.
In my opinion, Tim Hardaway up-faked, got him in the air, took the contact, should have been a foul, in my opinion.
I agree.
But you could make a serious argument for this series being in the Pistons' favor right now with a chance to go home and close out, right?
Right.
So I think you're right. Tobias Harris got his career started in Detroit.
I mean, even Paul Reed, he was cut by the 76ers. You know what I mean? And he's played big minutes for them down the stretch. He's made some big plays. He made some big plays in Game 4. You know what I mean?
Jalen Duren's turning into a really good piece.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him be healthy in 3 years.
And then you have Ausar, right? Like, who is just a freak. You know what I mean? Both the Thompson twins are freaks.
He's fun to watch play basketball.
I think Amen is better than Ausar is. And we'll get to the Rockets a little later, but like, Jesus Christ, like those two are just absolute defensive presences in their second year in the league. Like, I mean, they are a little bit old. I think they're both like 22. But it's crazy to see their progression.
Yeah. So
I don't need to talk about the Knicks now. I think the Knicks are supposed to win this series still. You know, you obviously have the better players. Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, one of the best, backcourt, frontcourt duos. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Like, you have so many pieces that you're supposed to win. But again, the Knicks are going to nick. You know what I mean? Like, this is a team that just, it's super possible that you could see them fall apart, especially in a Game 7 in front of their home crowd. But I do think that Jalen Brunson has been I think he won Clutch Player of the Year this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's always going to be a closer. So, like, these games being so close, I do think that they play more so into the Knicks' hand than the Pistons' hand. But it is definitely an interesting series to watch, and I really do hope it goes 7 games. Another series that I hope goes 7 games that may not is Golden State versus Houston. This feels like an old-fashioned NBA rivalry. The Rockets and the
got
Warriors.
Rockets Warriors again, and I'm thrilled. It's been so long, and by so long I mean like 5 years. But both of these teams went to the trenches and back, and now they are 2 of the premier teams in the Western Conference.
Right.
And watching, like, when you are watching a basketball game and you see Warriors Rockets in the scoreboard, just the colors, it totally takes you back to Harden versus Curry.
Yeah.
And so these games have also been super exciting. But it is 3-1 in the Warriors, and I think that surprises a lot of people after the season that the Rockets had.
Yeah, I think that they've been just playing inconsistently. Like, Alfred Şengün has had some really good moments in this series and some really moments where he's been absolutely shut down by Draymond Green. By the way, a series where you have Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks in it is pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Like, just awesome. From a hate watch perspective, like, nobody likes either of those guys all that much, and they hate each other. You know what I mean? So, like, the chippiness, having the breakups, the technical fouls, like, all these things have been super cool to watch. Steph Curry showed us a vintage performance in Game 1, was bad in Game 2, has been fine thus far. Jimmy Butler is showing you, he still got it from a playoff perspective. I just think that, simply put, like, the X factor in this series was always going to be Jalen Green, and he just has not shown up in the games that the Rockets have needed him to. He's been a pretty big non-factor.
But the game that they won, he just balled out.
Yeah. Yeah, and the issue with Ime Udoka's teams are never going to be their defense. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes that Steph Curry's going to make just crazily tough shots. You know what I mean? But, like, these games are always going to be won or lost by how well the Houston Rockets play offense. And they just haven't had the offensive push that they've needed thus far. And I really do think that they needed to win Game 4 in order for this game to go 7 games. I think the Warriors probably get it done on their home court in the next game, and this is going to be one of the most memorable 5-game series I've seen in a while, if that is the case. But man, it does feel like this series could go 7, and I really hope that it does.
I think the last series, well, I guess there's 2 series left. Let's talk about the Lakers.
Yeah.
Is this one of the most disappointing playoff performances from a team in recent memory? This team was 3rd going into the playoffs. Added Luka Doncic. You have great pieces around him and LeBron James.
Right.
And they are down 3-1 to an honestly mediocre Wolves team.
I just feel like no one wants to play the Wolves. I just don't think that anybody wants to deal with Anthony Edwards.
Especially
Simple
in the playoffs.
Yeah, simple as that. Like, it's a tough situation because, I mean, obviously, I wanted the Lakers to do a little bit better. I mean, we're getting to the end of LeBron James' run at the top of the league. I wanted to see him make one last playoff push. I liked the fit with him and Luka Doncic. I thought it was really interesting and intriguing to watch. And to be honest with you, if there is a team that I think could come back from 3-1 in a series, it's the Lakers, in my opinion. I think that they are, the best team primed to do it. I mean, they have the experience in LeBron James in order to do so. But yeah, they've just played disappointing basketball. They just have not really shown up. And the fact of the matter is that Anthony Edwards is one of those guys who just is in the moment. He feels the moment. He feels the pressure. He is capable of putting a team on his back, and he has shown time and time again why he is considered to be a superstar in the NBA. And I think he'll continue to do so for years to come.
And he's also a killer. And now they're in a closeout situation.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're in Los Angeles for Game 5.
Right.
I don't think it matters to him, to be honest. I think that he may go out there and have 40 and just kill the Lakers. They have no one that can guard him.
Right.
And I don't really know if anyone in the NBA can right now.
I think JJ Redick is getting outcoached and outclassed in his first playoff series as well. I think Chris Finch is one of the most underrated coaches in the league, especially considering last year in the Western Conference Finals he was sidelined because he had that
he broke his leg or something.
Knee or something.
Yeah.
So he wasn't like the on-court guy. But regardless of that, in the last game, in Game 4, JJ Redick played all of his starters for the last 20 something minutes of the game. I mean, he Tom Tibbs did a little bit, and I just don't know if that's the most effective strategy to win you a game here. I don't know. I think
that JJ Redick's coaching will be. I think that, and I don't want to count all my chickens before they hatch, because the series is definitely not over, as you mentioned.
Right.
If the Wolves are able to close it out, I think the Lakers have to go find a reliable veteran big man, and then I think that JJ Redick's offense will be fully unlocked once that happens, because he's very much a set and screen, roll, kick kind of coach.
Yeah,
definitely kind of player. So I don't think that we'll see his full offense until they have someone better than Jackson Hayes running the 5.
I think if you slide a Daniel Gafford in there or something
absolutely,
like that,
that'd be a great fit.
Yeah.
Even a Jonas Valanciunas at his old age would be great. Someone who can set screens and rebound.
And you can get for $15 million, $10 million a year probably.
Yeah.
But that's what they're looking for. The last series, last but not least, that I think we want to touch on before we go, because I do have class in a few minutes that I have to get to, is Nuggets Clippers.
Yeah, this is a 7-game series.
Yeah.
And it always was. After during Game 1, when we saw Russell Westbrook make that steal and end the game, it was a 7-game series.
It is so good. It's so good.
This is such a Denver Nuggets playoff series.
Yeah.
I mean, the other day we got an Aaron Gordon tip-in buzzer beater, and last night we got a Jamal Murray 45-point game.
Right.
This is such a Nuggets 7-game series.
Right. I mean, it feels like we're getting vintage Kawhi Leonard. It feels like we're getting vintage James Harden. We've seen spurts of that. Norman Powell obviously has been pretty good.
Russell Westbrook has been great at times.
He's been good. Yeah, but the Russell Westbrook spectrum is always going to be a thing, right? He's always going to do something good, and then he makes a dumb play, and then he sucks, and then he does something good, and he always does.
Yes.
Bro, it's a spectrum.
Absolutely.
Makes a 3, has a turnover. Gets an offensive rebound, has a turnover. It's just so, it just never ends. But yeah, this series is just so enticing. And as a fan, of a series that I have no stake in this series. So I'm just please go 7 games. Please be really close at the end, and please let me see a buzzer beater to win Game 7.
This just has the feeling of one of those series the playoffs were really good 2 years ago when we got in the first round. Warriors Kings went to 7 games. It was a fantastic Game 7. We got Grizzlies Lakers. That was a fantastic series, right?
Right.
So this just has a feeling of one of those series that we remember. And maybe neither of these teams will go very far in the playoffs. The winner may lose in the next round. It doesn't matter if this series goes 7 games. We will remember this series. And I will not make a prediction about it. I do not have any stake in this, and I don't really care who wins the series as long as it goes to 7. So I will be rooting for the Clippers full on in Game 6.
Me too. Me too.
Also, the Intuit Dome rocks.
Yeah, it does.
It's awesome. All right, so I think that closes out what we have. I know you got to get to class.
Yeah.
But we will certainly be back next week with more updates early next week. Keep an eye out for an episode. But until then, this has been The Corner Office, and I'm Jack Byrne.
And I'm Alex Benders.
Going 3.
1-3.